basically the government has to decide whether it has to go for a growth or it has to go for containing inflation.
But when you talk about the private investments there, the capacity utilization is still somewhere in the mid 70s. Why is private investment not coming in, and when will it even come in?
The main reason is if the consumption levels are low, like you said, the urban consumption is really coming down. It's been a bugbear of Indian economy, how to increase manufacturing.
Yeah.
Now, the target is 25% of, the share should be 25% of overall GDP, and this has been a dream for quite some time.
Hello and welcome. I'm Srinivasan. This is Talking Sense with Srini. We're discussing Modinomics ahead of the crucial budget session in the Parliament. Joining me is Editor-in-Chief, Mr. Srinivasan, sir.
Yeah,
Thank
hi.
you very much.
Hi, Vijay.
Sir, if you look at India's financial metric, it's quite gloomy there, right? India is all set to register its weakest growth since the pandemic this fiscal year, and that's because of low urban consumption and high food inflation there. So what do you think the government should prioritize right now in the budget session?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of hype about how the economy is functioning, and the GDP numbers which came, basically second quarter number of GDP, which was about 4.7, that really shook people. What had happened? That's when people started examining the numbers much closely. The GDP numbers, actually, what is the GDP? It gives the total economy, whatever production happens, the sum
output,
total
yeah.
of the market price. That's what it gives. So second number which came again, which was a bit shocking, is the consumption which has fallen. That was bit a downer. Third is inflation. There's been a persistent inflation, though it's very much under control as far as RBI is concerned. Within RBI's whatever limit they
Tolerance
set,
band, yeah.
tolerance limit, it is there. But then if you see the food inflation, that's been nearly 9%, which is much higher. That's hurt people very badly.
That's
So all these factors have had some dampening effect, and then now you have a lot of external factors. Since Trump has come, rupee has been really swinging up and down. Actually, rupee has really lost 3% in last few weeks, which means that is also going to have an effect on overall economy. So all these factors have kind of put a very uncertain situation. So it's pretty challenging now for the finance minister how she frames this budget.
That's right.
Now let me go and tell you what are the challenges in the budget. Basically, the government has to decide whether it has to go for a growth or it has to go for containing inflation. Now, growth is a primary objective of the government, and it would like the economy to grow. Like, if you know, we have been saying that India is now the fifth largest economy in the world. That happened because of GDP growth. So you have to keep the growth momentum going because it gives an overall push to the economy. But then on the other side, you have RBI, which keeps focusing on inflation targeting, because that's an essential task. Other than overall financial sector, they are the kind of referee. They are the watchdogs of finance. Basically, banking and financial sector, that's what they look after. So it's a regulatory body, but they have to keep continuous eye on inflation.
That's right.
Now, the real question is how Nirmala Sitharaman is going to deal with this problem. Let me give you one small example. Like I told you that the rupee has depreciated really by 3%. And if you have to take in account and calculate the GDP, what has been its impact? According to one estimate, if we were at the same level at 2014, which is at 61 rupees, which is currently at 86 per dollar, then the size of the GDP would have been around 5 trillion, which is what we have been saying our target. So you see the difference. Right now it is around 3.8 or some such thing. So that's the kind of impact it has. So the finance minister really has a tough task. The overall growth figure, if you see decadal growth figure also, it's not been above the average. It's not been above 5, which is again a downer, because you really need a very high growth rate. If we have ambitions to become powerful economy, which is what the political leaders, especially the Prime Minister and others have been, Finance Minister, others have been saying, that we have a huge target, then your growth rate need to be above 8%, 8 to 9%. And here we are struggling at 5.
That's right. Interesting. The Prime Minister also said we got to grow in 2 digits, right? At some point.
Exactly. I'm not even talking of double digit now. Even 8 to 9% would have been pretty good, consistent. But we are below 5, which once, very derisively, one of the, like I think in one of the earlier podcasts I said, there was a economist called Raj Krishna. He defined as Hindu rate of growth. That Hindu rate of growth cannot cross 5%. I think we have come to that. So it's really a matter of concern. And one has to see what measures she takes in this budget to kickstart, to again give a boost to the economy.
As you rightly said, the inflation is within RBI's tolerance band of 4 to 6%, and there's a growing chorus among the economists to cut rates, and this is the right time to do so to spur growth. What do you think will happen? The MPC meet is around the corner.
There's been a huge difference of opinion between RBI and the government over this. While RBI, even the governor who recently retired, Shaktikanta Das, he continues to be on the path of kind of fiscal consolidation and bringing the deficit down and keeping the inflation under control. That has been his target, and he's been insisting on it. If you say somewhere in December, I think they had a rate cut, 50 basis point, which they did on CRR, and he didn't touch repo rate. CRR is basically cash reserve ratio, which is the money which is with the banks, which is compulsory. They reduced it, which means some money was actually released into the system, which means the liquidity increased by, I think, nearly by 1.6 lakh crores. The other one is the repo rate, which basically gives a short-term lending. Now, there are many people wondering whether in this February MPC meet or whether the RBI would cut the rates. But I think even the government was pushing for it, that it should go. But then they seem to have slightly changed their tone following Trump's takeover.
Trump's coming in, okay.
Because with the rupee swinging and foreign investments falling, I think nearly $15 billion or something has been an outgo as compared to last year. There's an inflow of $30 billion. So these are issues of concern for the government. So the food inflation, though, as you said, the inflation is within the target range of the RBI, but the food inflation has been really very high. So now I heard one of the economic advisors of the government saying, look, this is happening because the basket has got more food in it.
Yeah, that's right.
Now these are, and then the other reason given was, though Indians are actually consuming less cereals and more vegetable, fruits, fish, meat and other things, still the inflation is high because there is too much weightage given in the basket, in the index to food. I think that should be changed. That's the argument. So it's kind of, I would rather say, look, when something goes wrong, please don't try to change the goalpost.
That's right, yeah.
So that's one. Second is, the second argument given is that, people are buying less food grains also because, please remember, there's nearly 80 crore people who are getting subsidized food grains. The government is giving those, 80 crore people, which is a huge number. And so one has to really see, so there is a tacit admission somewhere that, we're giving this because there are so many needy. Then you have another 240 million or so which are continue to be below poverty line. And the disparities haven't yet reduced. Another big problem is unemployment. The unemployment rate continues to be high. So the government really has to focus on all these issues. So inflation and budget deficit is two. So fiscal consolidation, the government has been doing very well. The budget also looks at, the government looks at, and it has been on target. I think it's at 4.7% or something, right, fiscal deficit. Yeah. And they have said that this year they'll continue. The point is, should finance minister for a moment don't focus on that, because if, and rather focus on growth, whether she takes that route or she continues fiscal consolidation, She also tries to manage inflation. It gives enough signals so that the inflation could be managed. You know, and then continue to release enough funds for capital expenditure. So a lot of challenges. So she really has to decide what path she has to take.
If you look at India's last quarter financial numbers, it's very evident that the India's growth still relies heavily on the government's capital expenditure spending, right? The moment you sort of lower your infrastructure spending, the growth comes down. But when you talk about the private investments there, the capacity utilization is still somewhere in the mid 70s. Why is private investment not coming in, and when will it even come in?
Yeah, so you're right actually. Just about when the COVID happened, government began to spend hugely on capex. And it's a good thing. What are you doing? By spending on capital expenditure, you are trying to create real assets.
That's right.
Which, as per the economy, is a good thing, which is what the government has been trying. But then there is a flip side to it. Too much of public investment could also crowd out private investment. So that could be one reason. But the main reason is if the consumption levels are low, like you said, the urban consumption is really coming down, then there is a impact on the companies. So the private corporates won't spend money if they don't see enough demand coming. So possibly that is one reason. But then, funnily, there are other arguments as well. That if you look at data, there have been exceptional occasions where, though the private investment has come down, but the consumption has actually gone up. Even that is possible. So what does it indicate? It also indicates that besides these fixes, the government actually need to look into various policies. So there is a structural adjustment perhaps somewhere in the economy the government has to do. Now, I'm saying this because even the chief economic advisor, Anant Nageshwaran, in an interview, he says that, look, the wages haven't increased.
That's right, yeah.
It hasn't kept up with the inflation. That's what he's saying. The wages haven't kept up with the rate of inflation. The other thing is, on the other hand, private companies have 4x profit. Their profit, I think this is last 15 years as compared to GDP, one of the highest profits they have cornered. So obviously not all companies have benefited. This clearly shows that the medium and MSMEs, small industries, are not gaining that much. So the government has to do something so that industries go to the next level. The SMEs go to the medium level industries go to the next level. And that's what he's saying. That's not happening. And therefore, we need to do this structural adjustment. He himself is suggesting that.
So keeping the spotlight on the manufacturing there, so I have some interesting numbers there. The real gross value addition for manufacturing FY24 was 9.9%. It's projected to drop to 5.3% in FY25. It seems like the manufacturing growth is kind of weak and quite stagnant as it was the last couple of years. So while the government's production-linked incentive hasn't caused dramatic changes, but there has been some kind of green shoots, particularly within the electronics manufacturing and the solar power manufacturing and so on. But how do you assess the overall success of the production-linked incentive scheme when it comes to boosting India's manufacturing there?
Yeah, you're right, actually. So, it's been a bugbear of Indian economy, how to increase manufacturing.
Yeah.
Now, the target is 25% of, the share should be 25% of overall GDP. And this has been a dream for quite some time. But it's not been happening. One of the reasons is if you see that the spread of manufacturing companies is largely only in 3 states, which is Tamil Nadu, Gujarat and Maharashtra. So we have not been able to expand further manufacturing to more areas. What I'm saying is these are concentrated, so need more manufacturing. The manufacturing is somewhere struggling at 12 to 13% of GDP. It has to nearly double. So the government has been trying to tackle this issue in various ways. So one of the things was skilling, Skill India, Manufacture India, those things all came. So, there were tax incentives also given. If you think there was a huge corporate tax cut which happened, during post-COVID, during the COVID, just after that. All these were done. And then when these things were not working, they started a PLI scheme, more focused. and where they identified some industries.
That's
And
right.
then initially, I think one was I think mobile component manufacturing industries. Second, I think they went for electronics, and third, they went for I think medical instruments. And then later they expanded the list because mobile phone was really a success. So encouraged by that. Now, what is the PLI scheme? PLI scheme is, they would give an incentive on value addition. Suppose a company is supposed to make 100 mobile phones. Instead of that, it is making 130. So on the 30, you will get further incentive. So this scheme worked initially very well. So encouraged by that, the government expanded the list. Many more components were included in PLI. But again, it has become sluggish. Possibly, again, like I said, structural issues crept in. Now, what are the bugbear of Indian economy whenever these implementation issue comes? One is the power cost, your energy cost. And second is, your infrastructure cost, transport cost. These are the issues which keep cropping up.
Yeah.
And how do government addresses it? So you have to do again basic fixes. You have to identify these problems and go after them and fix it so that it doesn't keep coming back. I think this budget again should take note of, otherwise, the overall plan of Modi government that, we want to make India by a developed nation by 2047. So, if you have that we want to become a developed nation.
Yeah.
So there has been a lot of focus on these kind of talks, but what requires is real brass tacks work on these statements.
One last question there, sir. I mean, economists often argue that India should be focusing on developing its human capital. That's exactly what Dr. Raghuram Rajan too had said in the World Economic Forum Summit in Davos. The government came out with this policy called Employee-Linked Incentive last year, the ELI scheme, which is kind of seen as a panacea to the so-called job crisis. How do you see or assess the success of this PLI scheme? You see it sort of, expanding in this budget?
I think it will be very difficult to assess a scheme within 1 year of its launch. Normally what happens when a budget announcement takes place, then the scheme is framed, then financial allocation takes place, then implementation starts. It takes some time. So I haven't studied this scheme to give you a complete picture of what has happened with that. But employment, to raise the employment in the economy, they have to do multiple things. See, the focus should be more on kind of industries which are, not capital intensive or more employee intensive, where you are able to hire more employees, give more employment, and increase the productivity. So government has to identify and go for those kind of schemes where you are able to get more people into employment. So what Raghuram Rajan is saying is also important. What he's saying is that you require focus more on human capital. Basically what he's trying to say is, look, we need more skilling, focus more on education. So if you have to look at other developing countries which from developing to developed stage, if you look at those kind of companies and you have to study them, in countries, sorry, not companies. So you would say that you will find that they have really focused on education. They have focused on social wealth.
Yeah.
So those are the issues which we have to take care of. So already there is a debate going in India, which is a very funny debate. What should we do with the population? Now, all the politicians, if you heard RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat, he is now telling people that go for more than 2 children. At least minimum 3 you should have. Now, Chandrababu Naidu is saying, have more children. MK Stalin, Tamil Nadu is saying, have more children. Now, they have different reasons for saying this. Now, if you want to increase human capital by getting more children, that's not a solution. A child, cost of a child, education, bringing up is very expensive. It's not so easy. And the demographic dividend, which they feel that, we may lose, there are different reasons. Say, for instance, southern states like Tamil Nadu or Andhra Pradesh, their problem is that they are below replacement rate. So therefore, they worry that, whether they won't have enough working population So, working population issues can be taken care of automatically because a lot of migration is happening and it will happen. So, but then have they really tried to improve the quality of people here? Look at even Chennai. Are you happy with the state of affairs here? Are the roads are good? Whenever flooding happens, you see the drainage system here. But here there's a very good, pretty decent health system. But if you go to other places in Delhi, can you get COVID really exposed many of these things.
That's right.
But as far as the northern states are concerned, if you look at them, some of the states like Bihar and UP, there, the fertility rates are still very high. So instead of politicians focusing on their issues, probably they want a fix of demographic fix in the south because they feel that their power in parliament will reduce because of delimitation. That's what Andhra and Tamil Nadu's worry is. In the north, they worry for some other funny reason. They seem to think that the majority population must increase, and that is a solution. I mean, these are not real issues. I think these are diversionary tactics rather than there should be more focus on governance, and it's a constant distraction which keeps happening. And I think people should be focusing, and especially middle class should be ensuring that real issues are focused on, and that should be the focus of this budget.
So thank you very much. Insightful talking to you. Hope to decode the budget once again on Saturday.
Yeah, thank you.